desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power.
Okay, good morning. Before we begin, I have to make an announcement that I'm going to be going out to the US in a little over a week. So next week I will be here, but the following week we're going to arrange the class via Zoom. But I think we will have the class here, and maybe I will be on the video screen, and we can hopefully continue like we have been with reading and discussion. And so I'm going, my mother became unwell, and so it's a little open-ended. I don't know how long I'll be away, but for some time at least we'll proceed that way. And there's going to be a link for the Zoom that will be given, It's going to be on the Savitri Bhavan website. It will be emailed, I think, to people on the Savitri Bhavan list. And I don't know if possible next time I would have the link and give it here. I would say that anybody who needs it could probably write to Savitri Bhavan or to me via email and get the link. But it should be on the Savitri Bhavan website. So next week I'll be here, but I'm just going the following day. Okay. So today we're going to start Canto 3 of Book 1 on page 22. And it's a pretty long canto, so I think we'll read through the first half and then go back and begin discussing that and then take up the second half later. Maybe just as a brief introduction, we have been examining Savitri and her mission in the previous cantos. Sri Aurobindo has described her nature, her character, but also the nature of her being as an incarnation of the Divine Mother. So all of that has focused on Savitri, and in this canto, we begin a long kind of flashback before she was born and what led up to her birth, and in particular, the yoga of the king, her father, King Aswapati. And there's a few cantos in Book 1 that I would say kind of give an overview of his yoga and spiritual realizations. And then in Book 2, which is a very long book, the longest in Savitri, we'll explore his journey through the inner planes of consciousness in detail. And after that, in Book 3, his ascension into the higher planes of consciousness and meeting the Divine Mother there at the highest planes of consciousness, and her agreement to descend, to incarnate on earth, and then follows the birth of Savitri, his daughter. So let's begin now by reading through the first half of Canto 3. So I think we could begin here. It's okay.
The yoga of the king, the yoga of the soul's release. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth, one in the front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. a thinker and toiler in the ideal earth, brought down to earth down beneath her radiant power. His was the spirit that stopped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, a point in being on earth's uncertain roads. His birth held up a symbol and a sign, his human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseen world. Affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's depth to earth and man. A greater sonship was his divine right.
Thank you. Let's continue. Ash. Okay. Go on.
From 20 onwards, sir? From 20 onwards?
Just continue. Although consenting.
Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shed the light ineffable, a strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vast behind. A power was in him from the unknowable, an archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasurer of superhuman dreams. He bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long growth to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots.
Continue.
On sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived as eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven. His will a hunter on the trails of light. An ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of posant wings.
Thank you. Pause.
Of our mortality, touched by this tenon from the heights, became a playground of the living infinite. This bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives, the person is a mask. With deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable. A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery person of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty. This sculpture of the forms of the infinite, this screened unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small dumb seed his cosmic thought. In the mute strange of the occult idea, determining predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his image self from form to form, he regards his icon growing by his gaze, and in the warmth foresees the coming God.
Thank you.
At last, the traveler in the path of time arrives on the frontiers of eternity. In the transient symbol of humanity draped, he feels his substance of undying self and loses his kinships to mortality. A beam of the eternal smite his heart. His thought stresses into infinitude. All in him turns to spirit vastness. His soul breaks out to join the oversoul. His life is oceaned by that super life. He has drunk from the breast of the mother of the worlds. A topless supernature fills his frame. She adopts his spirit's everlasting ground as the security of our changing world and shapes the figure of her unborn mites. In mortality, she conceives herself in him. In the creatures, the unveiled creatrix work, her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes, her being is his through a vast identity.
Thank you.
Then is revealed in man the overt divine. A static oneness and dynamic power descend in him, the integral Godhead seals. His soul and body take that splendid stamp. A long, dim preparation is man's life, a circle of toil and hope and war and peace, tracked out by life on matter's obscure ground. In his climb to a peak no feet have ever trod, he seeks through a penumbra shot with flame a veiled reality, half known, ever missed, a search for something or someone never found, cult of an ideal never made real here, an endless spiral of ascent and fall until at last is reached the giant point through which his glory shines, for whom we are made, and we break into the infinity of God. Across our nature's borderline we escape into the supernature's arc of living light. This now was witnessed in that Son of Force. In him, that high transition laid its base.
Thank you.
Original and supernal immanence, of which all nature's process is the art, the cosmic worker sets his secret hand to turn this frail mud engine to heaven use. A presence wrought behind the ambiguous screen. It beat his soil to bear a titan's weight, refining half-hewn blocks of natural strength. It built his soul into a statued god. The craftsman of the magic stuff of self, who labors at his high and difficult plan, in the wide workshop of the wonderful world, modeled in inward time his rhythmic parts. Then came the abrupt transcendent miracle. The masked immaculate grandeur could outline a travel in the occult womb of life, his dreamed magnificence of things to be, a crown of architecture of the worlds, a mystery of married earth and heaven, annexed divinity to the mortal scheme. A seer was born, a shining guest of time.
Thank you.
For him, mind's limiting firmament ceased above. In the griffin forefront of the night and day, a gap was rent in the all-concealing vault. The conscious ends of being went rolling back. The landmarks of the little person fell. The island ego joined its continent. Overpast was this world of rigid limiting forms. Life's barriers opened into the unknown. Abolished were conception's covenants, and striking off subjection's rigorous clause, annulled the soul's treaty with nature's nescience. All the gray inhibitions were torn off, and broken the intellect's hard and lustrous lid. Truth unpartitioned found immense sky room. An Empyrean vision saw and knew. The bounded mind became a boundless light. The finite self mated with infinity. His march now soared into an eagle's flight.
Thank you.
Out of apprentice to ignorance, wisdom appraised him to her mastercraft, and made him an archamason of the soul, a builder of immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness, freedom and empire called to him from on height, above mind's twilight and life's star-led night, there gleamed the dawn of spiritual day. As so he grew into his larger self, humanity framed his movements less and less. A greater being saw a greater world, a fearless will for knowledge there to arise. The line of safety reason draws that bear. Mind, thought, soul dive into the infinite. Even his first step broke our small earth bounds and loitered in the vaster, freer air.
Thank you.
In hands sustained by a transfiguring might, he caught up by lightly like a giant's bow, left slumbering in a sealed and secret cave, the powers that sleep unused in man within. He made of miracle a normal act, and turned to a common part of divine works, magnificently natural at this height, efforts that could shatter the strength of mortal hearts. Pursued in a royalty of mighty case, aims too sublime for nature's daily will. The gifts of the Spirit crowding came to him. They were his life's pattern and his privilege. A pure perception lent its lucent joy. Its intimate vision waited not to think. It enveloped all nature in a single glance. It looked into the very self of things, deceived no more by form he saw the soul. In beings, it knew what lurked to them unknown. It seized the idea in mind, the wish in the heart. It plucked our out from grey folds of secrecy. The motives which from their own sight men hide.
Thank you. Let's pause.
He felt the beating life in other men invade him with their happiness and their grief, their love, their anger, their unspoken hopes, entered in currents or in pouring waves. Into the immobile ocean of his calm, he heard the inspired sound of his own thoughts, re-echoed in the vault of other minds. The world's thought streams traveled into his ken. His inner self grew near to others' selves, and bore a kinship's weight, a common tie, yet stood untouched, king of itself alone, a magical accord quickened and attuned to ethereal symphonies, the old earthy strings. It raised the servitors of mind and life to be happy partners in the soul's response. Tissue and nerve were turned to sensitive chords, records of luster and ecstasy. It made the body's means the spirit's acolytes.
Thank you.
A heavenlier function with a finer mode, lit with its grace, man's outward earthliness. The soul's experience of its deeper sheaths, no more slept drugged by matter's dominance. In the dead wall closing us from wider self, into a secrecy of apparent sleep, the mystic tract beyond our waking thoughts, a door parted, built in by matter's force, releasing things unseized by earthly sense, a world unseen, unknown by outward mind, appeared in the silent spaces of the soul. He sat in secret chambers looking out into the luminous countries of the unborn, where all things dreamt by the mind are seen and true, and all that the life longs for is drawn close. He saw the perfect in their starry homes, bearing the glory of a deathless form, lain in the arms of the eternal's peace, wrapped in the heartbeats of God's ecstasy.
Thank you.
He lived in the mystic space where thought is born, and will is nursed by an ethereal power, and fed on the white milk of the eternal strength, till it grows into the likeness of a god. In the witnesses' occult rooms with mind-built walls on hidden interiors, lurking passages opened the windows of the inner sight. He owned the house of undivided time. Lifting the heavy curtain of the flesh, he stood upon a threshold serpent-watched, and peered into gleaming, endless corridors, silent, and listening in the silent heart for the coming of the new and the unknown. He gazed across the empty stillnesses and heard the footsteps of the undreamed idea in the far avenues of the beyond. He heard a secret voice, the word that knows, and saw the secret face that is our own. The inner planes uncovered their crystal doors. Strange powers and influences touched his life.
Thank you.
A vision came of higher realms than ours, a consciousness of brighter fields and skies, of beings less circumscribed than brief-lived men, and subtler bodies than these passing frames, objects too fine for our material grasp, acts vibrant with a superhuman light, and movements pushed by a superconscient force, and joys that never flowed through mortal limbs, and lovelier scenes than earth and happier lives. A consciousness of beauty and of bliss, a knowledge which became what it perceived, replaced the separated sense and heart, and drew all nature into its embrace. The mind leaned out to meet the hidden worlds. Air glowed and teemed with marvelous shapes and hues. In the nostrils quivered celestial fragrances. On the tongue lingered the honey of paradise, a channel of universal harmony. Hearing was the stream of magic audience, a bed for occult sounds earth cannot hear.
Thank you. I'll read the next one. Out of a covert tract of slumber self, the voice came of a truth submerged, unknown, that flows beneath the cosmic surfaces, only mid an omniscient silence heard, held by intuitive heart and secret sense. It caught the burden of secrecies, sealed and dumb. It voiced the unfulfilled demand of earth and the song of promise of unrealized heavens and all that hides in an omnipotent sleep. In the unceasing drama carried by time, on its long listening flood that bears the world's insoluble doubt, on a pilgrimage without goal. A laughter of sleepless pleasure foamed and spumed, and murmurings of desire that cannot die. A cry came of the world's delight to be, the grandeur and greatness of its will to live, recall of the soul's adventure into space, a traveler through the magic centuries, and being's labor in matter's universe, in search for the mystic meaning of its birth, and joy of high spiritual response, its throb of satisfaction and content in all the sweetness of the gifts of life, its large breath and pulse and thrill of hope and fear, its taste of pangs and tears and ecstasy, its rapture's poignant beat of sudden bliss, the sob of its passion and unending pain. Next.
The murmur and whisper of the unheard sounds, which crowd and around our hearts, but find no window to enter, swelling into a canticle. Of all that suffers to be still unknown, and all that labors vainly to be born, and all the sweetness known will ever taste, and all the beauty that will never be. Inaudible to our deaf mortal ears, the wide world rhythms wove their stupendous chant, to which life strive to fit our rhyme beats here, melting our limits in the illimitable, turning the finite to infinity. A low muttering rose from the subconscious caves. The stammer of the primal ignorance answer to that inarticulate questioning. There stooped with lightning neck and thunder's wings, a radiant hymn to the inexpressible, and the anthem of the subconscious light. All was revealed there, none can here express. Vision and dream were fables spoken by truth, or symbols more veridical than facts, or were truths enforced by natural seals.
Thank you.
Immortal eyes approached and looked in his, and beings of many kingdoms neared and spoke. The ever living, whom we name as dead, could leave their glory beyond death and birth. To utter the wisdom which exceeds all phrase, the kings of evil and the kings of good, appellants at the reason's judgment seat, proclaimed the gospel of their opposites, and all believed themselves spokesmen of God. The gods of light and titans of the dark battled for his soul as for a costly prize. In every hour, loosed from the quiver of time, there rose a song of new discovery, a bow twang's hum of young experiment. Each day was a spiritual romance, as if he was born into a bright new world. Adventure leaped an unexpected friend, and danger brought a keen, sweet tang of joy. Each happening was a deep experience.
Thank you.
There were high encounters, epic colloquies, and counsel came couched in celestial speech, and honeyed pleadings breathed from occur lips to help the heart to yield to rapture's call. And sweet temptations stole from beauty's realm, and sudden ecstasies from a world of bliss. It was a region of wonder and delight. All now his bright clairaudience could receive, a contact thrill of might unknown things, awaking to a new unearthly closeness. The task replied to subtle infinities, and with a silver cry of opening gates, sight lightening lips into the invisible. Ever his consciousness and visions grew, they took an amplier sweep, a loftier flight. He passed the border marked for matter's rule, and passed the zone where thought replaced life. Out of these worlds of sign, suddenly he came into a silent self where world was not, and looked beyond into a nameless vast.
Thank you.
These symbol figures lost their right to live. All tokens dropped our sense can recognize. There the heart beat no more at body's touch. There the eyes gazed no more on beauty's shape. in rare and lucent intervals of hush, into a signless region he could soar, packed with the deep contents of formlessness, where word was into a single being wrapped, and all was known by the light of identity, and spirit was its own self-evidence. The supreme gaze looked out through human eyes, and saw all things and creatures as itself, and knew all thought and word as its own voice. Their unity is too close for search and clasp, and love is a yearning of the one for the one, and beauty is a sweet difference of the same, and oneness is a soul of multitude.
Thank you.
There all truths unite in a single truth, and all ideas rejoin reality. There, knowing herself by her own termless self, wisdom supernal, wordless, absolute, sat unaccompanied, uncompanioned in the eternal calm, all-seeing, motionless, sovereign, and alone. Their knowledge needs not words to embody idea. Idea seeking a house in boundlessness, weary of its homeless immortality, asks not in thought-carved brilliant cell to rest, where single windows clipped outlook on things sees only a little arc of God's vast sky. The boundless with the boundless there consorts, while there one can be wider than the world, while there one is one's own infinity. His center was no more in earthly mind. A power of seeing silence filled his limbs, caught by a voiceless white epiphany into a vision that surpasses forms, into a living that surpasses life. He neared the still consciousness sustaining all.
Thank you.
The voice that only by speech can move the mind became a silent knowledge in the soul. The strength that only in action feels its truth has lost now in a mute, omnipotent peace, a leisure in the labor of the worlds, a pause in the joy and anguish of the search, restored the stress of nature to God's calm. A vast unanimity ended life debate. The war of thoughts that fathers the universe, the clash of forces struggling to prevail in the tremendous shock that lights a star, as in the building of a grain of dust, the grooves that turn their dumb ellipse in space, plowed by the seeking of world's desire, the long regurgitations of time's flood, the torment edging the dire force of lust that wakes kinetic in earth's dullard slime and carves a personality out of mud, the sorrow by which nature's hunger is fed, the oestrus which creates with fire of pain, the fate that punishes virtue with defeat, the tragedy that destroys long happiness, the weeping of love, the quarrel of the gods, seized in a truth which lives in its own light.
Thank you.
His soul stood free, a witness and a king. Absorbed no more in the moment-ridden flux where mind incessantly drifts as on a raft, hurried from phenomenon to phenomenon, he abode at rest in indivisible time. As if a story long written but acted now, in his present he held his future and his past, felt in the seconds the uncounted years, and saw the hours like dots upon a page. An aspect of the unknown reality altered the meaning of the cosmic scene. This huge material universe became a small result of a stupendous force. Overtaking the moment, the eternal ray illumined that which never yet was made. Thought lay down in a mighty voicelessness. The toiling thinker widened and grew still. Wisdom transcendent touched his quivering heart. His soul could sail beyond thought's luminous bar. Mind screened no more the shoreless infinite.
Thank you.
Across the void retreating sky, he climbs. Through the last glimmer and drift of vanishing stars, the superconscious realms of motionless peace, where judgment ceases and the world is mute, and the inconceived lies pathless and alone. There came not form or any mounting voice. There only were silence and the absolute. Out of that stillness mind, newborn arose and woke to true once inexpressible, and form appear dumbly significant, and seeing thoughts a self-revealing voice. He knew the source from which his spirit came. His movement was married to the immobile vast. He plunged his roots into the infinite. He based his life upon eternity.
Thank you. So now we'll go back. So that's about halfway. And we'll go back to the beginning of the canto. And we'll just read and then discuss.
Canto 3, the Yoga of the King, the Yoga of the Soul's Release. A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, protagonist of the mysterious play in which the unknown pursues himself through forms and limits his eternity by the hours, and the blind void struggles to live and see. A thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres into our province of ephemeral sight, a colonist from immortality, a pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads. His birth held up a symbol and a sign. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise who leads the unseeing world, affiliated to cosmic space and time, and paying here God's debts to earth and man. A greater sonship was his divine right.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So we just note in the title begins the Yoga of the King. In this way, we know that this is the yoga of Aswapati. Otherwise, we wouldn't know because he doesn't name Aswapati in this canto or even, I think, in book 2. He's not named throughout the whole beginning of the poem, and only, I think, in book 3 he's finally named. So we know from Sri Aurobindo's author's note at the beginning that King Aswapati is Savitri's father. So here he's just referred to as one in the front, and then it begins using pronouns his and him. Yes. So the first line, a world's desire compelled her mortal birth. So that's the link to the previous cantos. So we see that the cause of that birth, her mortal birth, is this world's desire, this aspiration in the world, in nature, for fulfillment, for the divine. And he, the one, he is in front of this immemorial quest, this quest that has been there from the beginnings of time. He is the protagonist of the mysterious play. A protagonist is like the main character in a drama or a great event. And this play is one in which the unknown pursues himself through forms. And it's interesting that he uses this word unknown because Aswapati is not named also, but then he's kind of a representative of this unknown, this unknown being, the one divine being. Yeah. Yeah, he sometimes would refer to the divine as the unknown. Aswapati is just kind of his representative. Yes, that's another aspect of it, that it could just represent Sri Aurobindo. Some of the commentators, I think even Narad Baran, suggested that this King Aswapati, is a kind of a representation of Sri Aurobindo himself. And we see, I mean, the poem as a whole basically focuses on these two characters, Aswapati in the first half of the poem and Savitri more in the second half of the poem, as well as in those first cantos here. And so at one level, they seem to represent Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
So, in which the unknown pursues himself, and in which the blind world struggles, yes? Mm. And then one brought down to earth.
One brought down to earth.
One in the front of the memorial quest.
Yeah.
Brought down to earth, down with a radiant power.
Correct. So that's still referring to that one, to him, the king. So we get some sense that he's representing the divine pursuing himself in form in the world. He's there above all form in the timeless formlessness of self, but here in the world, he pursues himself through form. But he begins with a inconscient form, and so he has to pursue over time in the course of evolution his true self, his true nature. His eternity is limited by the hours and the blind void. That's the beginning of the evolution, the manifestation, and it begins to struggle to live and see. But then it returns back to Aswapati, a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air. So that's his status as of, in the poem, he is the leader of this quest, and already he is in the higher levels of the mind, in the ideals realm, a thinker and toiler in the ideals air. From that height, he brought down to earth's dumb need, that world's desire, her radiant power, the Divine Mother's, Savitri's power into the world. And then it begins describing the king in greater detail. His was a spirit that stooped from larger spheres. It suggests that he is a being from the heights that has come down. Alok Pandey referred to him as an involutionary being. I often refer to him as an avatar from certain things that he even describes here in this passage. But he's certainly some kind of a divine being coming from divine realms, a colonist from immortality. That's his native realm, and he's come to colonize a new place for the immortal, for immortality here on earth. And then again, his role here on earth, a pointing beam on earth's uncertain roads. He is lighting the way forward for humanity. And his birth held up a symbol and a sign. His birth suggests the deeper purpose of our existence, the goal towards which we are moving. And perhaps he is a symbol of the divine himself. And his human self, like a translucent cloak. Translucent is a substance that allows light to pass through, but not transparently, not fully clearly. It covers, but it allows the light to shine through. His human self, like a translucent cloak, covered the all-wise, who leads the unseeing world. And that is perhaps kind of a hint or suggestion that he is in his inner being this divine being, the all-wise. And he's affiliated to cosmic space and time. That's where he has come from, and has consciously that connection to universal time and space. And he's paying here God's debt to earth and man. A greater sonship was his divine right. He's paying God's debt because God owes us something for creating us in this ignorant and inconscient substance in this world of struggle and suffering. He owes us some way out, some release or some fulfillment here in this world. So we could continue.
Where am I reading?
Although consenting.
Although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable, a strength of the original permanence, entangled in the moment and its flow. He kept the vision of the vasts behind. A power was in him from the unknowable, an archivist of the symbols of the beyond, a treasurer of superhuman dreams. He bore the stamp of mighty memories and shed their grandiose ray on human life. His days were a long growth to the supreme, a skyward being nourishing its roots. On sustenance from occult spiritual founts, climbed through white rays to meet an unseen sun. His soul lived as eternity's delegate. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven. His will, a hunter in the trails of light, an ocean impulse lifted every breath. Each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So the description of him continues. We see that in the first lines, although consenting to mortal ignorance, his knowledge shared the light ineffable. This is something characteristic, I think, of the avatar or of a being like this who holds within himself the supreme knowledge, but in taking on a body, he takes on this human form and personality, which by its very nature still participates in the ignorance. The human nature still has within it this inconscient basis. And so there's still a kind of an ignorance that pursues all of the human nature. So he consents to embody himself in that form, but still he holds within, in his divine aspect, that light, ineffable, indescribable, supreme light and knowledge. And then we see the same kind of described in terms of his force, a strength of the original permanence. So his strength partakes of that original permanence, but here in bodily life, it's entangled in the moment and its flow. And again, he kept the vision of the vast behind, within himself. The power was in him from the unknowable. He holds that divine power within and lets through his nature what he wills and what's possible at that point of time. Okay. Okay, so it may be related to this quantum entanglement, which I don't understand, so I can't comment. But we see this other interesting characteristic. He is an archivist of the symbols of the beyond. And I like that because, like his book, The Secret of the Veda, he has, this, in that reveal, this vast archive of symbols of the divine. And if we look in his letters on yoga, we have a big long section of symbols of what they mean, all different types of symbols, which we also may encounter in our dreams or in our visions. And all the colors having different significances. Very interesting. Mother and Sri Aurobindo have revealed to us so many different symbols. This whole world is kind of a symbol of something deeper within. And so all the various aspects of the world are symbolic, have deeper significances within them. Mm. 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 Right. Yeah, all those capitalized words suggest something of divinity or spirit of the spirit. And he's a treasurer of superhuman dreams. And this perhaps suggests something of this dream of humanity for heaven on earth, for a divine life here, for a superhuman existence here on earth. Mm.
I'm reading this, I'm seeing something that I feel I share. I have heard some of the stories of the old Indian kings of old, and how strong and beautiful were the kings in India.
Mm.
And so reading this, one gets the sense that Auroville did not necessarily become king because he had great armies and killed everybody else and became.
Mm.
It was because of his wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
What is interesting to me is to see that Sri Aurobindo's story puts an Indian king as the one who now carries, is described right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes, and then because his daughter then would be also royal, princess.
Right.
And there's a different feeling about a king and a princess.
Mm-hmm.
In these days, the kingship is not required. We don't know what child is coming right now carrying great wisdom and tremendous light that will bring the next step of advancement or that's needed, whatever that step is already described.
Mm-hmm.
But what is fun is, for me, is now to read the story through from the standpoint that he ends. What is now needed is love. To know love, to feel love is the greatest thing. So it's bringing in a new age. And the story, if all of these elements are considered as Sri Aurobindo as a storyteller and a lover and a poet, how the people and the events he uses to help us catch the feeling of what's happening and to carry it is, I'm just quite full of this from this first page.
Okay, thank you. For those outside that weren't able to hear you, I can't, express everything that you just expressed. But one of the, I think, key points that you made is this sense of Aswapati being a king, and the kings in the ancient days in India were kind of great beings, and it may not have been simply that, they were the most powerful and had the strongest army, but that there was some inherent greatness in them that they embodied, and maybe something of the divine qualities that they embodied in their being. Kind of like we were talking of symbols, in a way, these kings and royalty may have been symbolic of these kind of divine qualities which are there in human beings, but of which they are kind of the great exemplars in humanity. So that's kind of one aspect. But then you also speak of the difference between then and now, and how now there has kind of been a leveling off, we could say, of status, and we don't have kings and queens so much that are exemplars of these divine qualities, but the divine qualities are perhaps taking birth in kind of normal human beings, those without particular status. So there may be really exceptional beings embodying something of divinity in the next door neighbor, and that's part of the evolution, right? The kind of spreading out of these qualities from just a very small elite group of people into humanity in general. So I think those are interesting points you made. But let's see. How far did we go through this? Yeah, we were just, so a little bit more in this passage. He bore the stamp of mighty memories. Also, perhaps he has within himself a sense of the past history, his long development, evolution through many lives. He bears something of the past within him. He had mentioned previously that of the unknown who limits his eternity by the hours. So he is representative of that being, and so he is kind of carrying that past and bringing it to the future, leading it into the future, and shed their grandiose ray on human life, those great memories of the past. And we see that with Sri Aurobindo, even in this poem. He's kind of bringing this light of the past ages of spirituality into the present moment for us to read and learn about here. And his days were a long growth to the Supreme. And this speaks something of his, and perhaps Sri Aurobindo's own life and tapasya, of how much progress they would make in a single day in their, in their sadhana. We may struggle and, make a little bit of progress over a lifetime. They were making huge strides every single day. Again, we see his soul lived as eternity's delegate. And then there's some, I think, symbols relating to the Vedas here. His mind was like a fire assailing heaven. We could think of Agni and the hymns to the mystic fire, and his will a hunter in the trails of light. Also that symbol of the hunter in the trails of light, and the hunting dogs also seeking out light. Right. A skyward being nourishing its roots on sustenance from occult spiritual founts. So he's like this great tree ascending towards heaven, but its roots are in the occult spiritual founts. Climb through white rays to meet an unseen sun. He's also ascending, aspiring towards the sun, also symbolic of the divine being. And then each action left the footprints of a god. Each moment was a beat of puissant wings.
But as it is an unseen sun, it's the supermind.
What's that?
It is an unseen.
This unseen sun could represent the supermind, perhaps. As yet it was not fully realized. It was still kind of above, transcendent. So it was unseen. Yes, he speaks of the sun also as a symbol of supermind. So I think we have to stop there for today. We'll continue next time here, and then the following week we'll be here, but also on Zoom.
It's really interesting. You said text about the explanation when this place. I come in also when it was very interesting, your explanation and
So her explanations are probably there on YouTube also, or on the Savitri Bhavan website. Oh, also. From this same section? Oh. So Thursday also here, 4 p.m. So we can hear Shraddhavan commentary on Thursday. It's on the website also.
A world's desire compelled her mortal birth. One in the front of the immemorial quest, a thinker and toiler in the ideal's air, brought down to earth's dumb need her radiant power. Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.